and welcome to Tuesday's Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who tried to get out of this episode by claiming he had phantom back pain. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I did. The doctors couldn't really check me out, so they said they had to go with what I was saying, but then you guilted me and said that you'd demote me to our podcast B team. So here I am.
We don't have a podcast B team. We should get one of those.
Exactly. I didn't know what that meant. That could be sinister. It could mean like you're going to get rid of me. Maybe that's like Total Soccer Show Mafia speak for you're going to remove me.
So people who listen to the Total Soccer Show and our other podcast, Goalmouth, will know we're talking about Diego Costa and, to a certain extent, Dmitri Payet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically, we know that Payet wants to move. We know that Diego Costa maybe wants to move, had agreed personal terms. It seems that Costa won't be moving, maybe Payet will. But the way that they were both maybe showing their subtle protest was to say, ow, my back hurts, and I can't play anymore.
And you said that you'd heard on Gab Marcotti's podcast,
right.
The Game, that this is kind of a common thing among footballers, right? If you want to sort of essentially go on strike and make your team sell you, you can't do that because you breach your contract, but you can say, I'm injured, I have back pain. And then that apparently is really hard to diagnose or track, or essentially it's hard to prove false, right?
I mean, because with any other injury, say I don't want to play, so I say, oh, my knee hurts. Well, knee is a warning sign. That's going to send off alarm bells. People are going to want to take care of that.
Yeah,
so you're going to get scans and checks, and the medical people are going to be able to say, like, pretty categorically, there's nothing wrong with your knee. And then it really does become sort of like, are you just making that up, maybe? Whereas with your back, it could be any number of things. There's a lot going on. And it's also probably pretty costly to diagnose every single possible issue with the back.
I love your medical description of how the back works. There's a lot going on.
I mean, there is. Well, but even more so than like the back like itself. I mean, more so that it could be like you have a pinched nerve in your neck is causing you a lower back problem. Like you can have all those weird little. So it could be any number of things, and I think that's why it's not so easy to say categorically, no, your back is fine. You should be playing.
So the latest, I was fascinated by that little medical bit of knowledge. But the latest on these two transfers is it looks like Costa's not going, right? Because Chelsea essentially said, yeah, you can go and earn 30 million a year, but not till the summer because we're busy right now trying to win the Premier League title.
Yeah.
And the Chinese club, I've forgotten the name. Was it... sorry, I've forgotten the name completely. I knew it this morning.
I know you did because you pronounced it like perfectly this morning. I wondered if you had gone on like some sort of pronunciation guide website.
No, I just kind of did it phonetically, so we're just assuming I got it right. I have the Google Doc in front of me now. The team name is Tianjin Quanjian. That's who was trying to get Diego Costa.
You sound like a native speaker, my friend. Native speaker.
So what happened was the owner, Xu Yuhu, said...
Less of a native speaker now.
Yeah, less good now. Said basically, we want to sign him, but we want it now. We're not going to wait till the summer. So it looks like the Diego Costa move is off.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so I think that's probably for the best for him, at least for Chelsea, from their outlook right now. It does appear that he's returned to first-team training, so I think maybe he will stay put, at least until the summer, then maybe some other deal comes along.
He'll be back in that team in no time, I would guess.
I mean, yeah, I think he already is. The bigger question is what happens with Dmitri Payet, because it seems, I mean, all the stories, his family have already settled in Marseille, they're already back there, that he wants to go, that he's done this before, that he's agitated for a move. So it seems more likely that he's going to go, and as you said in the Goalmouth, it's just a matter of when West Ham get the amount of money they think is fair.
Yeah, because they started by saying, no way, we're not selling you.
Yeah.
Then Marseille made a bid of, I think, around 20 million. And I think the latest is, we've got to hit at least 30-something million. So they're already gone from absolutely no way to negotiating the price. Yeah. So I think this is happening. And honestly, if he wants to leave, then I think it's the smart move by West Ham to sell him for the maximum amount of money, maybe even reinvest it if it's before the end of January, and then just move on. Just move on.
Yeah, and not to...
And just keep your happy memories of 2015/16.
But West Ham have previous with this sort of situation, right?
Who with?
Because, and not to plug every other podcast but our own, on Football Weekly, the Guardian's podcast, they were discussing how there was a man who used to play for West Ham, decided he wanted to move to a bigger club, which is a little bit different than Payet, but did so by protesting, didn't want to play anymore, kind of had some fake injuries. You may guess.
Is it Paul Ince?
It is not. It's Slaven.
Is it Alexander
It's Slaven Bilic. When he played for West Ham, he brought out the fury of Harry Redknapp by, I guess, feigning some injuries, refusing to play, sulking, and agitating for a move to a bigger club. So maybe he has some experience in dealing with these matters then.
Where did Bilic end up?
I can't remember after that, but I think it was like he got interest from, the usual big clubs and maybe didn't see West Ham as the biggest club. So that was where that agitation came about.
Oh, we've come full circle.
But it's also kind of sad that all of your guesses were kind of correct. Poor West Ham.
All right, one other thing, Taylor, that you shared with me, 5 minutes before we hit record on this, because you said it just can't wait, is US Soccer released a video that's essentially highlights of Bruce Arena's first day as US national team coach in January camp, with some nice slow-mo touches, some nice bassy, wiggly guitar music. It's actually really nicely produced, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really was. And it was nice to see him... Sort of the focus of the video seems to have been sort of like him realizing that 10 years have gone by. Did you get that vibe at all?
Yes.
Because he talked about years past and how the Gold Cup used to be in January, and then he makes fun of DeMarcus Beasley for being old. He does it again later on in the video. But there's a couple different clips of him being like, they didn't know how to do this when I was first coaching. Now they all know the drills. They all know the commands. They all know exactly what's happening.
Yeah, there's some semi-complicated sprinting drills, right?
Yeah.
And I think he said that last time I was saying we did this, it would have looked like the Three Stooges, and now they all do it.
Is that what he said? I couldn't.
Yeah, Three Stooges.
Thank you. I thought it was they didn't know the 3 stages, and I was like, it seems like they're just running back and forth. But now I gotcha. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, it's an old-timey comedy reference from Bruce Arena. But it was an interesting point because it means that basically the standard of coaching at all the MLS teams is so much higher. And that's why all the players now know all these drills, right?
Yeah, I mean, so there's that element to it because, everyone seems to pick it up right away. And even people that maybe it seems like he wasn't sure of coming into camp, one of them being, it seems, Jermaine Jones. It seems like he didn't quite know what to expect in terms of fitness, in terms of his readiness to go. At the end of the video, he says something like, he is an animal. He just doesn't stop. Which
he was talking about how it takes some players most of the camp to hit top speed, or maybe. And he said he was halfway through the first session. Jermaine Jones was match ready and ready to go.
Oh yeah, because he tells them all no one's going to make the starting 11 in this training session. Don't hurt yourselves, which I thought was pretty awesome. But
that seemed the opposite of Klinsmann as well.
Absolutely.
Do you remember the time? I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 January camps ago where Klinsmann complained that players had turned up
that's right.
not 100%. They should have done a pre-January camp fitness regime themselves and turned up ready to go. Instead, you've got Bruce Arena saying, "Hey, take it easy in the first session. No one's getting a first team spot on the first morning."
I think because he knows he has bigger mountains to climb. But I really did. Speaking of the differences, that was one thing I really enjoyed was watching the way he interacts with players, and it's that sort of. I'm guessing you've had those situations, Daryl, when you're talking to somebody that you are trying to impress or you want them to think that you're smart. It could be in an interview, it could just be in a normal conversation, or you're meeting somebody who you've kind of idolized. You have those kind of yeah, I'm doing great. Yep, everything's wonderful. And you want to get all this information out, and you're kind of nervous. And it seems
you saying that's Greg Garza?
Yes, it seems like he has that ability to sort of ask gentle but probing questions and get answers, and have it be sort of informal and not this how are you feeling? You must play hard. You must be good. It feels more personal, even though it's kind of less personal. It feels much more like he's able to kind of interact with players in a less, how shall I say, acting sort of way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. Because it was still the 2 questions, or the big question he asked Garza was essentially, how's your ankle, right? And there's a wrong answer to that question.
Yep.
If you say it's bad, then you might be you might be looking at a camp exit.
But it was it was that.
It's not that he's going to cut him, but obviously he's going to give him some doubts, right?
Yeah, and just well, can I play him, in 2 games? Can I run him through full training? Yeah, obviously. But it also in there was hey, you with Atlanta yet? You started training? How's this? How's your wife? How's your ankle? It's just a bunch of questions that he has to deal with rapid fire, and he does. I'll say in the middle of what appeared to be a 4v0 passing drill.
And it is interesting to see this stuff because you heard sort of you've heard a lot of players say he's more of a people person and he'll gets to know the players a bit more than maybe Klinsmann did, and it's more of a father figure type thing than a taskmaster. But so it's one thing to just hear people say that, but and I know this is a US soccer produced video, so in some ways it's a little bit propaganda-y, right? Because they're only showing you the bits they want to show you. But it is interesting to actually see what that means, as opposed to just hearing about it secondhand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's nice to get that access to get cameras back in training, so you can kind of see what's being worked on and who's getting special attention. It was also nice to see, again, not even coming close to comparing my high school career with the U.S. national team, but
Really?
we had 4 coaches in 4 years. And every year you would always get that, like, oh, I got to impress a new coach. I got to be, on my game right away so he knows who I am. Now, obviously, it's different because it's Bruce Arena. He's seen these guys play. But even in that introductory one where he does make that joke about DeMarcus Beasley and talks about the Gold Cup in January, you can kind of see the looks on people's faces of like, yeah, okay. And like there's just this kind of like alert uneasiness that like I'm the awareness that they have to reestablish themselves and prove themselves to continue to be in consideration. It's interesting to see, and it's nice to see because it means you're going to get more effort and you're going to get a lot of people working very hard to prove themselves to Mr. Arena.
All right, so lots more January camp coverage to come as we build towards that first game against Serbia and the second game against Jamaica.
Yes, sir.
But today's show, Taylor, it's all about the questions. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, listener questions we're going to answer on today's show.
I like this plan.
First couple are 2 World Cup related questions. So we did a big show, last week?
Yep.
All about the 2018 World Cup, and we tried to look at it from multiple angles. I feel like we did a pretty good job. But we got some follow-up questions from listeners, which I think are really interesting. And we're going to answer 2 of them today. And I'll turn it over to you, Taylor, for the first question.
Sure. The first one comes from Mark Salzer. He says, why is 12 4-team groups not being talked about as an option for a 48-team World Cup? You could have the first and second teams in each group, along with the 8 best third-place teams advance to the knockout round. The best third-place teams advance in Euro 2016, and also when the World Cup was 24 teams. Would it add too much time to the 3 group stage games with an extra round of knockout games to the current 32-team format? I think the extra games would increase the revenue even more than the proposed 3-team group setup.
I mean, the answer is yes, it would add much time, right? It adds a whole extra game, and it adds many games in the group stage.
Yeah, exactly. It adds a whole extra game in terms of a whole extra match day. So if you have those 32 go through, then that's going to be, like 16 games that have to be played. That's going to spread out the tournament time, and it's just going to mean more games for more players, which I think you pointed out off air, clubs are probably not going to love.
Yeah, actually, the European Club Association, you'll hear them referred to as the ECA, which is kind of like the biggest teams, like your Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Manchester United banding together. They were adamant that they didn't want their players, because it's mostly their big name players playing in the World Cup, right? They didn't want their players playing an extra game at the World Cup. So one of the big things that FIFA had to do with this proposal was make sure that the maximum number of games was 7, as it has been.
Indeed. Now, so there's that issue. There's that issue certainly to deal with. There's also, I really hated the idea of that many teams advancing, but I kind of forgot that was the format in 1994. So I went back and looked. 16 of the 24 advanced to the knockout round. That's 67%. That would be the same percentage here, 32 of 48. So there is precedent for that happening, but obviously it's more teams in this situation, so it's maybe a diluted talent pool a little bit. Yeah,
so I would say I agree that the percentage is kind of the same, but 16 of 24, it's for some reason 32 of 48 teams going through feels like more. Does that make sense?
Oh, it feels like more, does it? Because it's double?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
I know what you mean. Yeah, because even like a smaller tournament with more teams going through, the idea still is it's a smaller tournament, which means you're getting like the cream of the crop, theoretically. Yeah. But I would say the biggest issue, once I kind of made my peace with that I came across, is that I think it's just too much expansion at that point. Because I think the way Infantino proposed this expansion was we want more teams and more people to be able to experience what it's like to be at the World Cup, to have their team at the World Cup. That there are countries all over the world who've never gone. They deserve more of an opportunity. And you can pitch that, you can sell that makes sense. But once it becomes more teams are going to go, more teams are going to make the knockout round, I think for football purists and people who are like maybe on the fence about it, it becomes a bit more of an imposition, and then you kind of necessitate a hardline approach, because it becomes like, wait, hold on, you're putting in more teams are going through, it means like you could have a fluke knockout game. I don't like this idea, and so I think you have to kind of limit the number of teams that progress to the group stage, out of the group stage, so that you can then keep that idea that like it really is elite once you get out of the group.
Well, wait, don't we still have 32 teams going through in the current 16 groups of 3 proposal?
Yes, but I think with the way it would be structured with the 12 groups is that then you've got like the third place team going through, and that suddenly is far less like how do I say this, aesthetically pleasing when you look at the tables than 2 out of 3, that makes sense, and you move it on. Like, so I think you can kind of it does come down in my mind a little bit to like branding and marketing and the way you're selling this tournament. And you can sell it's a new format with more teams, but you're still getting exciting knockout round games, and you're getting more games in the same kind of format, and a lot of third place teams are going through. It allows for more criticism, I think.
For me, the reason I'm more okay with 32 teams going through from a 16 groups of 3 group stage is that then you haven't had so many games, right? The group stage is much shorter, so therefore it doesn't feel like you've done this whole thing to still have like 2/3 of the teams go through. Instead, you've just had this tiny group stage. All right, the other thing that people have asked about, Mark didn't ask about this, but other people have asked, why not do 8 groups of 6?
Right.
And the answer is that is 15 games per group stage. You got 120 games before you even get to the knockout round with 8 groups of 6.
So that adds on some time and a number of games.
It certainly does.
And then I think the key aspect of Infantino's plan is that it cuts down on group stage games and adds a round of knockout games, which is where you have that drama, you have to have a winner, and I think you do start to see TV numbers maybe. In the beginning, they're really strong. I think they dip in the middle of the group stage, and then they pick up near the end because then it's kind of do-or-die matches, and then you're into the knockout rounds. And I think the plan here was let's get to the knockout rounds as quickly as we can, so then we can start eliminating people and keep those TV viewers watching.
All right, so Jason Tenbrink has a question, and his question is basically if we assume it is going to be 16 groups of 3, which I think is kind of a safe assumption, right?
Yeah.
Jason says, are there going to be 16 seeded teams in the 2026 World Cup instead of the usual 8? Because you need 1 seed per group, essentially, right? Jason said he would assume so to reduce the chances of an Argentina, Germany, New Zealand group. Jason says, if that's the case, what are the implications for the United States? Might we actually get to be a seeded team? I think getting into the top 8 is a bit unrealistic at the moment, but I think we've been at or close to the top 16 before.
We sure have.
What say you, Tyler Rockwell?
I'll take the second part first, and I'll say, as far as I know, from what I could tell, from what I could find, the U.S.'s best ever standing was 4th place in April of 2006, behind Brazil, the Czech Republic, and the Netherlands. Italy was 16th at the time. They went on to win that World Cup. So that tells you something. That's
when the FIFA rankings were absolutely crazy. They make a lot more sense now than they did then.
And one interesting thing really quickly about this is that going into the January 2006 friendlies, Bruce Arena, who was the coach at the time, basically was trying to rotate squads, see who else could maybe be in consideration. So he didn't prioritize those friendlies or the dead rubber World Cup qualifiers that the United States had left. And because of the poor run of form in those games, the U.S. dropped out of the top 8 teams. So they had a chance of being seeded in that tournament, but dropped out and thus got sentenced to the group in which they were embarrassed. So yes, the point is that the United States has been in the top 8 before, but is more likely to be in the top 16. And I think that is what will happen in terms of the top 16 teams will be seeded. I don't know if the United States will be able to make that jump, but hopefully they will.
I mean, it's an achievable goal, right? That's the thing. It's something to aim for, something we could realistically go after. I'm not saying we're going to do it, but it's something that we could look to. And I feel like this idea of this new system being beneficial to the US, I think people were so sort of focused on the fact that the World Cup was going to 48 teams, right? That's all that anybody could talk about. I don't think too many people in the US especially have stopped to think about what that would mean for your team.
You mean in terms of being seeded?
Yeah, I mean, it would change the whole World Cup experience for the US, right? I mean, you could end up in a group with 2 literally weaker opponents, if they're not literally, but, presumably weaker opponents if they're lower down the FIFA rankings.
Yeah, the other thing to consider at this point is, though, the host nation is always seeded. So then you have to wonder if it's in the 2026 World Cup, if it is in the United States, does it even matter where they're seated? But I take your point, though.
That's the other thing, though, right? That's the other bonus to the US. If we're going to do this, it does look likely that the US will either host or co-host the 2026 World Cup, which means, again, we could be a seeded team. Now, it's a very selfish way to look at it, but it's definitely a way to look at it.
Whatever, man. As the plot of Demolition Man has taught us, lots can change in 3 years. So let's just hold off, and Atlantis could return, and then they could be hosting a 2026 World Cup. We just don't know, Daryl. We just don't know.
Simon Phoenix centre forward in the 2026 World Cup.
They would probably win, or at least be fearsome for sure. And they'd have that Romania bleach blonde hair thing going, so that works too.
Yeah, that went deep into the knockout round. Before we get to some more questions, Taylor, we have a sponsor for today's show. Today's first sponsor is Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country.
That is true. Their mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone, which is important because cooking together builds strong family bonds. Research shows that Blue Apron families cook nearly 3 times more often.
So we're about to be a Blue Apron family, Taylor. Not you and I. Sadly, we do not share a domicile.
I like that you added sadly. That makes me feel better. Thank you.
We used to live around the corner, right? We were kind of
That's
close.
true. We really were. I forgot about that.
So we've both got our Blue Apron meals coming. I think you first. Yours is coming first because I've delayed mine a week because I'm down here in Florida. I am genuinely looking forward to opening this up with my wife and cooking this together. Not least because it will mean we won't have to sort of negotiate what's going to go into tonight's food. It will just be there in the box and there'll be instructions to prepare it.
I agree. I'm excited for 2 reasons. The first being that my wife and I have different schedules, and she tends to be healthy in the sense that she eats at appropriate times, and then I eat at like 1:30 in the morning. So I feel like this will kind of make us cook together. The other thing I'm excited for is to not have to Google what are spice comparisons, so I can figure out like what is the equivalent of thyme, since I don't have time. Because Blue Apron will have all of those ingredients, they're all ready to go. They're exactly the amount that you need. You don't have to worry about those types of issues.
It will be a rare situation where the recipe you're trying to make, you will have the actual ingredients for that recipe.
And yet I feel like somehow I'll still mess it up, but we'll see.
All right, well, our listeners can check out this week's menu and get their first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/TSS. You
will love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait.
That's blueapron.com/TSS. Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
Yes, sir.
Up next, Taylor, we have 3 more questions. We've sort of split this up into World Cup and non-World Cup questions.
That we have.
The first question is from Matt Graham in Union City, New Jersey. Not everybody includes their location when they email. I kind of like it when we get it. Matt says, as an American, I'm used to hearing athletes pay in annual salaries. In soccer, wages are often given per week. How does that translate into annual pay? Is it the number of weeks in a season, or is it the number of weeks in a year?
From everything I can tell, it is the number of weeks in a year. You basically, if you have a contract, usually the contracts start on July 1st because that's when the window opens, and they run through July 1st, or I guess June 30th. April, June, yes, June 30th. So it's for the entire year, not just for the months that you're playing soccer.
That's how I understand it too. Well, if we're talking really high level, right? If we're talking, say, English Premier League, let's take that as the example, then definitely. When you hear someone's weekly salary, you just multiply that by 52 to get their sort of annual guaranteed salary. And then on top of that, there's going to be sort of maybe some payments that have been amortized over a year or two. You're going to get you'll have goal bonuses and win bonuses and maybe extra appearance bonuses. But the guaranteed income of the weekly wage, just multiply it by 52. That's how you get it. But this got me thinking, why is that the case? Why is it an annual salary in the United States and a weekly salary in England? And I've done some research and I think I've figured it out, Taylor, but I want to invite you to guess why.
Thank you, because I did some research as well, and all I could get was like different opinions about it, because I mean, there's the idea that it relates to, I guess, like the way you used to pay workers, which was on a weekly wage. More recently, I've heard explained that it's just a way to make it applicable, because people can't understand Ronaldo being paid 16 million euros or however much he's being paid, but because that does not compare to what they make in a year, generally speaking, unless they are, say, Leo Messi or Diego Costa in 6 months. But people can't understand weekly wage, and so then it gets broken down that way because it makes it more understandable to people who are reading the papers that are printing the stories.
I mean, I would disagree with that because the numbers that are mentioned are still hard to understand.
Oh yeah.
But so this is my reading of it, right? This is not any official history. This is my reading of how this played out. This all goes back to, say, the late 1800s in England, right? Originally, no one was paid to play football, right? Then, slowly but surely, certain teams would start paying players to play in games, right? So you would essentially just get a match appearance fee, right? And it's kind of under the table, right? Because there's no professional association. It's not a real thing. It's more just like became like a loose agreement, like, I'll give you £2, you play in this game, how about that? And centre forward would be like, yeah, sounds good. But then it develops from there, right? And so it went from being paid per game to essentially being paid per week when there's a game every week, right? So once semi-professionalism comes in, where players still have other jobs, but they also get paid to play for these teams, like say Preston North End on the weekend, you did start to get an agreed weekly wage in order to keep that player. But you also then got an off-season retainer. How about that?
Really?
Yeah, so you didn't have the same wage every week for 52 weeks. You had here's a thing I found in 1921, because you used to have a maximum salary in England for footballers. In 1921, the maximum salary was £8 a week for the 37 weeks of the playing season, and £6 per week for the 15-week closed season. That was 1921, and then that's obviously the maximum wage is very much been abolished and blown straight through. They're definitely paid more than £8 a week now, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
And now it's just a full-time, flat weekly wage that you can extrapolate out into an annual wage pretty easily, at least in the Premier League.
I do like the idea of American athletes coming in. I know this isn't what happens, but in my mind, in my weird mind, I like the idea of an American coming in and saying, like, I want this much a year. And they're like, sure, that calculates to this much a week. Please don't check it. Please don't check it. Please don't check it. And just like, it's actually half what they asked for, but they agree to it because they don't understand math and conversions.
So I guess I have a question for you in the other way. Like, why is it quoted as an annual salary in, say, basketball or the NFL or that kind of thing?
The only thing I can guess is because you have the salary cap in American sports. And so when you're reporting deals, you'll report the year and you'll report the amount so that you can figure out, roughly speaking, how much that's going to cost for that one player against the salary cap that you have.
Okay, so MLS is a perfect example, right? We never talk about MLS weekly wages. We always talk about annual salary, I guess, for that exact reason. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'll buy that.
Okay, cool. I'm glad my my spitting something worked out, but I'm sure we'll get some emails about it, and I welcome those emails because I like knowledge.
Okay, up next, Taylor, I invite you to ask the next question because I did the one before.
Sure. It comes from Jennifer Ahern. I hope I pronounced that correctly. She says, so what's up with Reddit as it relates to soccer? I understand the concept of Reddit, but I've never spent much time there. And other than your show, most of what I've heard, it hasn't made me think that I should. Could you say a little bit about how you use it and whether it's something more people should consider using? And if so, how? By how, I mean, should I just search for a topic I'm interested in? Should I follow certain subreddits? I think those are a thing, or something else entirely. Good question, Jennifer. Daryl, how say you?
So I think actually I'm in a good position to answer this because I was someone who did not use or read Reddit. You did, and you kind of introduced me to it.
Really?
Right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely introduced me to the concept of Reddit. So I know Jennifer understands how it works, but I think there are people who don't. So I guess maybe the best way is to describe it as crowdsourced information, right? That is then voted up or down by the entire community. Like there's a Reddit soccer community, it's a soccer front page. Like links are submitted, or a piece of text is submitted, or a picture is submitted, and the community votes it up or down. And then you get kind of the front page of that page, the soccer page, and you'll have the most upvoted and commented on. I guess comments also count as a vote, right? That will be at the top of the page. So you get the most engaging news is at the very front, right? Right. And then that is then split out into, there's a soccer subreddit. There are individual team subreddits, right? There's a US soccer subreddit. I know there's a Man United one called Red Devils. Is that right? But then there's also like, computer games and whatever. Like I use Reddit. I read the OA was a TV show I got really into on Netflix, which is kind of, I love those mystery box type shows, right? Reddit is great for people who are picking through theories for something like the OA or Mr. Robot.
Oh, I love R fan theories. Yes, that's a good one. Yeah, because so Reddit subreddits are like reddit.com/r/ whatever the thing is. So for, again, Man United, it's Red Devils, all one word. And you do kind of have to know that. If you search the wrong thing, it might not show up, or you might get something else entirely, because there are lots of different acronyms and things out there.
I've been to the Wolves subreddit. It is not what I expected.
Is it just photos of wolves?
No, it's more sort of new agey and mystical than that.
Of course it is. Yeah. So the reason why I like it, though, is because it's access to news from all over. Which is very nice. So it's not having to scroll through Twitter, having to Google search soccer news and then see what comes up, because Google searches tend to be pretty out of date, is what I found.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And even if you go to, say, The Guardian is a good source, I think, for football news, which is obviously very UK skewed, right? Whereas, Reddit is more global. You know what the whole world is talking about. Like, up top this morning was, say, the new Juventus logo, which isn't like a massive story in England, but in the Reddit soccer community, it's a big story.
It is. It's also really good for stories like, I don't know if you saw the tweet from Jamie Carragher today that said he was coming out of retirement and had a Chinese flag. And then, so I was like, that can't be. So I clicked the comments, and that's the other nice thing about it is it's still the internet, so you're going to get a lot of like, this is stupid. but you're also going to get informed opinion occasionally, pretty frequently, I would say. And also you're going to get people saying, this has been debunked, this isn't real, he said he was hacked. And so you can like, kind of in one stop see the news and then see whether or not it's valid, see what people are saying about it, see if there are other stories to go off of or what the background is to a story.
Yeah, I think that's it. To me, the way I would describe the Reddit comments especially, which is really where the gold is, right, is a better quality of internet, right?
Yeah.
So if you read through the comments, there will be, this is to Jennifer's question, right? Basically, should I get involved there? You will see people trying very hard to be funny, and you will see people like taking pot shots at teams they don't like,
This
right?
is true.
But in amongst all that, there's always something very interesting, some really informed opinion or some sort of new opinion. And I think you can almost read it like the fan theories idea, right? Some of them are nonsense, some of them are just genius, insightful, and it's always worth reading through the comments to find the good information down there. So to me, it's the best version of crowdsourced internet commentary.
Yeah, I agree. So I think to answer the other part of her question is like, how do you use it? I would say my best advice would be either if you want it just for soccer, I would go to reddit.com/r/soccer and see what's there. And then from there, as you said,
just check the front page for fresh news, right? And then it'll be the first place it breaks in a big way.
Yeah, and what I tend to do is there's also tabs that you can sort by. So you can sort by top, which is like the top comments over the past day or week or month. And then you can also search by new, so you can get an idea of like what the trending stories are, but also what the new stories that have just been posted are.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Also, I want to give a shout out to Reddit/r/MLS, RMLS, because they did their 2016 awards, and guess who won Best Podcast or Online Soccer Show?
The Guardian Football Weekly?
The Total Soccer Show.
I knew it.
How about that? I was really proud. So thank you to everybody at RMLS who voted us their best podcast or online soccer show. That was really great. There's also Reddit/r/US Soccer is a pretty good source of US national team information.
These are all true statements, Daryl Grove. You are 100% true so far.
One more thing, when you introduced me to Reddit, one of the things you did, I think the reason I was introduced to it is that we were briefly top of our soccer.
Oh, we were. We were, but it should be you. Well, no, me, but
you posted it.
That's true. But I posted a photo of your dad's old ball and cleats.
Yeah.
The inspiration.
He had cleats and a soccer ball from the 50s, which I found in our garage at home.
And those cleats are the inspiration for the image on the front page of our website, I do believe.
Yes.
But yeah. So I posted that, and that got a lot of response, including a bunch of people being like, "Wait, you guys are on here? I didn't know that." So it was good. It's always good.
I tried to explain Reddit to my dad and told him he was top of Reddit, and I don't think it quite hit. But
that's fine.
When I told him I found the numbers of people that had looked at the picture of his boots, and then he was kind of impressed.
I want to see like a side-by-side comparison of you explaining Reddit to your dad and my wife explaining Cards Against Humanity to my grandmother. Because that happened.
We've never talked about this, but I am very anti Cards Against Humanity.
Oh, I'll second that.
Yeah?
I will co-sign that statement, my friend.
So I'll be very surprised if they ever sponsor the Total Soccer Show.
Yeah, it seems unlikely.
I think I'm okay with that.
Seems unlikely.
So my final reason for why maybe you should read Reddit/r/soccer. I should just say r/soccer, right? It's getting way too long to keep saying that.
HTTP.
Is the fact that, as well as being like huge transfer rumors or big soccer news, something like a picture of a pair of soccer boots from the 1950s that someone found in a garage can be top of Reddit soccer.
Oh yeah.
So you get the big news and you get sort of the weird news that's in there as well.
Yeah, and you get also like the detailed breakdown of how you could have the I forget what the Italian term was for like the essentially collusion to get a result if you have three teams in a group. Like that whole breakdown was done.
Yes,
we found that.
Biscotti.
Biscotti. Thank you. Or Biscotto. Yeah, you found that one on Reddit Soccer. So there's always like very interesting, thought-provoking stuff on there, as well as dumb things that will make you laugh.
Are you a regular commenter there?
No, not really.
Would you reveal your username?
I mean, my username is the same as every username I have everywhere. So if you know my Twitter name, you can find me pretty easily.
Okay, so that's a clue, right? Tyler's Reddit name is the same as his Twitter name.
And if it's mostly, if it's a few like weird photos that I've posted that are just goofy and strange, like when a person tried to write yard sale and it seemed to me wrote yayo sale, that was pretty hilarious to me. And then it's comments on Red Devils. That's pretty much it.
All right, next question, Taylor, comes from Scott Ely. Scott has a question about Mode Faiz Subri's Puskas winning goal. So this is, for those who don't know, part of the FIFA awards. The best was they awarded the Puskas Award to the best goal of the year. And this guy, Mode Faiz Subri, who plays for Penang FA in the Malaysian Super League, won it for a crazy bendy free kick. All right, so Scott's question, that kick, veering left, then back to the right, that was merely an accident caused by kicking a ball really hard but flat with no spin? ? No disrespect, and I love that the award went to a guy from a league I know nothing about, but he was given an award for something he did accidentally, right?
All right. So am I picking it up from the right ?
I mean, you can answer it. I've got my answer, but we haven't talked about this yet. I want to know what your answer is.
Okay. I would say that maybe like the exact placement of the ball and where it hits the goal wasn't necessarily intentional. But the way he strikes the free kick and the technique he uses, it is intentionally designed to create knuckle. And with knuckle hit perfectly, you have the type of movement that you had on that ball. So it's a ton of skill and know-how to create that type of goal.
All right, before I tell you if I agree or disagree, I'm going to tell you what the man himself, Mode Faiz Subri, said. He said, "Believe me or not, I have hit the ball in the same way as I always do, but this time I think I've been a little bit lucky. The ball took that strange trajectory." He also said that he would have voted for Neymar's volley.
Yeah, that's fair.
That said, I 100% agree with you. And even with his quote, I think that makes sense. I think the skill of hitting a knuckleball, you said you like hit it on the valve, follow through, don't put any spin on it. That's really hard to do.
Well,
right?
You don't follow through. That's the key point. If you
I see. Sorry.
If you watch him, he really he shoots with his right foot and he tries to not follow through as much as he can. It's like basically hitting and pulling the ball back or your foot back at the exact same moment, because you have to make perfect contact to create no spin. Because if you follow through, that's when you're going to get the usual spin that you'd get, and you're not going to get that crazy movement that you see.
Okay, listeners just found out I do not take free kicks for our Sunday team.
Well, just not knucklers, right. That's all.
You sort of like punch it, right? And I think if you hit it on the valve, then the more likely it is to happen, right?
Exactly.
This is kind of what Cristiano Ronaldo does. It's what Roberto Carlos used to do. So it is a really high-level, hard skill to be able to hit a free kick like that. But then there's an element of luck to it as well, right? That's the thing. It's hard to do, and then you kind of trust to luck. The crazy thing you just did, it's kind of unpredictable, and you hope that the unpredictability swerves into the net.
Yeah, and so to go like full circle back to I think Scott's overall point is that, or I would assume overall point, is that it's a really pretty looking goal, and he did mean to knuckle it. But I get what he's saying, which is that, like, but does that qualify as, like, the goal of the year versus something that requires an incredible amount of skill? Like, I won't be surprised if Olivier Giroud's kind of scorpion, well, we've established it wasn't a scorpion, but, like, you know, the flying back heel, I wouldn't be surprised if that gets a nomination, and that is a lot of skill to do a lot of different things in one build-up and then overall goal. So, like, that I could see as being a more accepted and maybe understandable choice next year.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I sort of see what Scott's saying, but I also think it takes a certain amount of skill even to be in the position to capitalize on that luck. Yeah. What's the song? What, 10% luck, 20% skill?
I'm not finishing the rest of those lyrics.
Something, concentrated power of will, and the last phrase is gets you a Puskas Award.
Oh man, isn't there? First of all, that's well done by you. Second of all, isn't there a managerial quote? I think it's on one of those like motivational posters I created for soccer manager quotes, but it was something like, "Football is 90% mental, the other 30% is physical." Like it's something ridiculous like that, or it's a manager not getting the percentages correct to get to 100. I'll have to look it up.
That sounds very Harry Redknapp, but I don't think it is.
No, he was definitely in there, but that was for the "he don't speak the English too good." That was his quote that I used.
All right, Taylor, we have another sponsor for today's show. Today's second sponsor is SeatGeek. SeatGeek have made the ticket buying process much, much easier, much, much simpler. You can now buy and sell tickets online with SeatGeek.
Yeah, SeatGeek does all the price comparison for you by searching multiple ticket sites and ensuring that you get the best possible deal.
So if you, what we do is we look through SeatGeek, we open the app, we take a scroll through, and we see if we had more time, what would we be doing? What tickets would we be booking?
Yep.
What are you up to in your fantasy life, Taylor, where you actually have time to go to events?
Well, I feel like we tend to focus on soccer here, not surprisingly, since we're the Total Soccer Show. But I like other sports, and I would not mind seeing VCU play basketball because I have not seen that since I've been back in the country. VCU, obviously, pretty decent. Also, my wife's alma mater and my mother's alma mater, and my brother-in-law's and my brother-in-law's. It continues. So I think LaSalle is what I have here, is coming to the Siegel Center this Sunday. So I wouldn't mind going to see that. And the tickets are available via SeatGeek.
So I started out joking that we don't have time to go to these things. I would definitely go to that because that's just down the street from us on free Sunday nights. We should. Oh no, I'll be traveling. I'll be on the road back to Richmond.
There we go.
Go without me.
As though I had time. What about you, Mr. Grove?
Well, one thing I looked into is off-Broadway in New York. I feel like I don't go to many shows, but I feel like I'd be an off-Broadway guy rather than a Broadway guy. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And a show I've always wanted to see is Avenue Q. Do you know about that?
I do not.
It was huge a while back. It's kind of like, I don't fully understand it, but it's kind of like puppets on stage singing, but it's got sort of adult comedy themes, if that makes sense.
I feel like you're describing Crank Yankers.
Kind of, but much better. I wasn't a huge Crank Yankers fan.
All right, so now I feel like you're describing Jason Segel's character's Dracula musical.
Yes, I think it's kind of in that vein.
I see.
Obviously still off-Broadway sells out really fast, but I could find tickets on SeatGeek for Avenue Q in February, and in fact those tickets were sometimes lower priced than what they had sold for originally, so that would be a good use of SeatGeek.
And if you use the SeatGeek app, Daryl Grove, they can be even cheaper.
Oh, and how would I do that, Taylor? How would I go about doing that?
You can get a $20 rebate off your first SeatGeek purchase. Download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab and click add a promo code, enter the promo code TSS. SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. So
download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code TSS today. Final segment, Taylor Rockwell. Final segment is the TSS Scouting Network. Reports are coming in thick and fast. It's so many we can barely hold them all in our email inbox.
You're not wrong. Like they're really coming through. Apparently, the TSS Scouting Network is kicking into high gear and doing big things on the world stage.
So we'll start with Jennifer Ahern. You know her from earlier. She asked a question about Reddit. She is also scouting Jairo Riedewald and the 20-year-old defender, Dutch international for Ajax. Jennifer says that Jairo, despite recently re-signing with the club, Jairo's playing time has dropped precipitously as the season has gone on after new coach Peter De Boer experimented with moving him up to defensive midfield for a few games. He's expressed some frustration with his lack of playing time, but there haven't been any rumours or transfers or even loans either. Presumably, Ajax are holding on to him in part because they're still in both the Europa League and the Dutch Cup, so here's hoping that we'll get some chances for Riedewald to turn things around.
Let's hope indeed. Next report comes from Mark Bujarski, scouting Nathan Adua. I always get that one wrong. 20-year-old winger/forward for Tottenham. Mark delivers a beautifully succinct scouting report. Quote, the Tottenham winger endured some unsuccessful loan spells, but has found his way back to the Spurs Premier League 2 side. Adua was on the score sheet as their Premier League 2 side drew with Man City. End quote.
I remember Adua, he was the one that went to Rangers at the same time as LLM, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we're kind of expecting him to do a little better this season. I'm glad Mark is keeping an eye on him. Spurs, many quality youngsters, must be really hard to break in.
Yeah, that is definitely a fair statement.
Speaking of hard to break in, Jeff Amelin is scouting Patrick Bamford, the 23-year-old forward for Chelsea for now. Okay, Jeff says, more disappointing news for Patrick. He was recalled by Chelsea from Burnley. Unlike their recall of Nathan Ake, this is less about wanting him to contribute than it is that he couldn't get any minutes with Burnley. If that sounds familiar, it's because the exact same thing happened last January when he went to Middlesbrough.
It did. However, I did some research because, and to go back to Reddit, this scouting report came in and I thought, I have seen news about Patrick Bamford recently, and sure enough, it looks like he's been sold to Middlesbrough for £5 million, and the fee could rise to £10 million depending on appearances and various clauses being triggered. He never played for Chelsea, hasn't scored in the Premier League, and cost Chelsea £1.5 million. So good stuff, Borough.
Well, this is really strange that he didn't have a great time at Borough, but now they want to buy him. That's a very odd situation.
It really, really is. I also don't understand why you need to be recalled in order to be sold.
I guess to get you back in there to do the paperwork. Yeah, because your registration is with Burnley, right? You're technically registered to Burnley while you're on loan there. So if you're going to be sold, you need that loan to end.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. All right, well, I'm glad we put that one to bed. Let's move on to another report from Ed Horatius, scouting Federico Bernardeschi, the 22-year-old winger for Fiorentina and Italy. Ed takes us back to the carefully vetted and thoroughly investigated transfer rumors surrounding Federico. In mid-December,
that sounded sarcastic.
Yeah, in mid-December he was linked, according to TSS standards, dubiously to PSG. About a week later, Bernardeschi was working with Fiorentina on a new contract to stave off the pursuit of Man United and Chelsea. As recently as yesterday, this was a few days ago, he reiterated his desire to stay in Florence, but there are still 2 weeks of rumor vetting to go until the summer when it all starts again.
Well, I'm glad Bernardeschi is keeping Ed's Google alerts full.
He seems to be.
Final scouting report of the day is from Ryan Marzak, scouting Pione Sisto, the 21-year-old winger for Celta Vigo and Denmark. Pione answered my call out in the last scouting report by starting and playing all 90 minutes in Celta Vigo's 2-1 win over Valencia in the second leg of the Copa del Rey round of 16, says Ryan. Celta's second goal was a beautiful free kick strike from Sisto. The goalie did get his hands to it, but it was too late. Bend it like Beckham, young Pione. Was that you writing that, or was that Ryan?
That was Ryan. That was not me.
Beautiful.
And I didn't even add the capitalization to "it was too late."
Did I do that loud enough? Did I portray the caps lock?
I believe you did. Also, now I'm wondering if I did add the caps lock. I don't think I did, but if I did, Ryan, I apologize for misrepresenting your emailing.
Thank you to everybody who sent in scouting reports, and thank you to everybody who is supporting the show by going to TotalSoccerShow.com/subscribe and signing up to support the Total Soccer Show. Part of supporting the show also includes, if you do the $10 a month level or higher, we guarantee to answer a question a month on TSS. We have two $10 a month questions that we haven't answered. One's about the potential Super League, and one's about comparing great teams from the past. Those are because we're working on those. They deserve good answers, and we're going to get those to you.
Yeah.
If anyone else is a $10 a month subscriber who's asked a question for January and we somehow have missed it or haven't answered it, please email us and remind us. That's the best way to let us know.
I'm still a little bitter that Daryl didn't want to go with my answer to the question about the best teams of the past, which was there are many, and move on.
Yeah, it needs a little more research than that, Taylor.
Yeah, I'm not sure it does.
You know it does. You know. Yeah, so thank you to everybody for scouting reports. Thank you to everybody who has sent questions. Taylor Rockwell, all that remains is to say thank you, sir, for taking the time to talk to me from 850 miles away today.
And thank you, sir, for doing the same.
Listeners, thank you for listening. There'll be more TSS coming at you later this week.